Married couples of Reddit, what advice would you give to engaged couple? The point of arguing is not to win, it is to understand where they're coming from and why this issue matters to them. Happily married 27 years here. Here's some of what I've learned along the way. The marriage is more important than the wedding reception. Disagreements are not you versus me. They're us versus the problem. Shared goals including finances, kids, careers, etc. are more important than shared hobbies. Sex is important. It's not everything, but it's important. It's great to love the person you're marrying, but hopefully you also like them, as in, if they couldn't be your spouse, for whatever reason, would you still choose them as a friend, exactly the way they are now? Marry someone that you don't feel compelled to try to change into someone different. The biggest transition is if you weren't living together before. Getting used to sharing everything can be difficult for some, but good communication is key to making things work. Discuss finances. Once married, you take on each other's debts and responsibilities. It's important to know what those are before the wedding. Finances are one of, if not the, biggest reasons for failed marriages. So get on the same page early and stay there. Clean up after yourself. Disagreements happen. Find a middle ground. There is always a middle ground. Ignore the people who say, never go to bed angry. A lot of times the middle ground presents itself after a good night's sleep. Have two comfortable places to sleep. It will come in handy during disagreements, but they're a godsend if someone is sick, has allergies and snores. The only thing that will keep you together is the persistence of simply staying together in the face of all the boredom, pain, and troubles that will come. You will be bored, you will be in pain, and your relationship will be in trouble. During the bad times you literally have to just say, how are we going to work this out? Together 14 years, married 3, it's okay to spend time alone together. Quite often, one of us will play video games, read, watch TV, etc., while the other is occupying their time doing something else in the same room or another. Don't mistake alone time with I don't want to be with you time. Gratitude is key. This sounds easy, but let me explain. The key is that gratitude is not a balancing test. Don't just be grateful the extra things your spouse does. Be grateful for every single thing. If you shop for food, then prep it, cook it, then clear the table, then load the dishwasher, then clean all the pots and pans, and then later your spouse empties the dishwasher. Thank them for doing that, and feel it. To me, this is a hard thing for people to do, and it is such a huge part of the happiness in marriage. It leads to a feedback loop of appreciation for the little things as well as the big. It makes it more likely that your spouse will appreciate you, and unless you married a terrible person, far more likely that they will do more. You will also see more of the things they do. This isn't just stuff, but anything. Grateful for listening, for sharing, for sitting on the couch, for having your child, etc., etc. Anger is neither a reason nor an excuse for bad behavior. You will get angry, you will fight, but you should never insult, indulge in name-calling, throw things, or hit them. If you cannot or choose not to control what comes out of your mouth when you are angry, work on that first. Get married second. When fighting, think of your entire relationship and ask yourself, is this going to matter over the course of the relationship? Probably not. A trick to getting out of fights is to tell each other how important this issue is to you. You can use the 1 to 10 scale. Ask your spouse, how important is this? Because to me it's a 4. It's even easier if you go first. Honey, this is a 9 to me, or this is a 2. Oftentimes we get into fights and don't know how to get out of them. It's never you against your spouse, it's always you and your spouse against the problem. My wife recently passed away from breast cancer, so I'm not technically married, but I have this advice. Marry your best friend, the one you like to have random conversations with, that interests you, the one that makes you laugh a lot, the one you can spend all your time with, the one who will support you in tough times and vice versa. You know, the one. Let small things slide. Do things with your so even if you don't have an interest in it. Don't cheat. There is pretty much no coming back from that. Something will always be lost. Go to bed at the same time, even if it just until she falls asleep. My wife goes to sleep around 10 p.m. on the weekends. I go to bed with her, then get back up and continue my evening once she is asleep. Spend time with your friends without your so. It's important to get away sometimes. Been married 17 years so far. Together 20. Never rush marriage. At the end of the day, it's really nothing more than a piece of paper. What really matters is in your heart. Second piece of advice. They better be your best friend or it most likely won't work out. This is someone you'll be spending the rest of your life with if all goes as planned. And the older you get, the less friends you'll have and the more you'll spend with your significant other. If you're rich, a prenuptial should be mandatory. If you stay together, no harm, no foul. If you separate, well, you'll be glad you got one. You're a team. Act like it, especially in front of the kids. Have separate activities. Once you become married, don't become Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. Be Mr. Johnson and Mrs. Johnson. Retain your individuality. Have time apart. Have separate hobbies. Have separate activities. It will allow you to have experiences you can talk about and share with each other. It will give you time apart so you don't feel smothered. It will give you an outlet to get away for a bit. Never stop being yourself. They married you for who you were, not who you would become. Don't lose that. Someone once told me, once you get married, your wife becomes your family and your family become your relatives. Really helped me through any stressful family gatherings, knowing we had each other's backs, being our own team. Create a budget before you merge finances and make sure you're both on the same page. It's okay to have a long engagement, but make sure you also set a date. Having a long engagement felt like there was a lot less stress, and setting a concrete date will help you set your timeline. Never invade Russia in the winter. Been married 9 months. I don't have a lot of sage relationship advice except this. Your partner is not your enemy. My husband said that to me before we were engaged. I was upset about something and he calmly said, I'm not your enemy, and that's really made me reevaluate the things he does that bother me. That said, you don't have to blow $30,000 for your wedding. That's a down payment on a house. No one is going to remember what color your bridesmaids' dresses were, or what flavor your cake was. They're going to remember how much fun it was, who got the most drunk, who had the worst dance moves, and how happy you two were that day. You are going to want to strangle each other during the planning process. Just relax, have a glass of wine or something, and talk it out. We spent less than $7,000 on our wedding and didn't have a single complaint. Barbecue, beer, cupcakes and good music. Optimal ratio is about 5 compliments to 1 complaint. Research has shown, don't deviate too far from that ratio in either direction. Have separate blankets. Nothing builds resentment like a freezing butt at 3 a.m. When you argue, get comfortable. It's harder to argue from a squishy armchair as opposed to a straight-backed wooden chair. Be honest. Note that I didn't say tell each other everything, but don't deliberately omit information your spouse should know. Sometimes a white lie is acceptable, sometimes it isn't. Find the balance that works for you and go with it. Married 5 years. Together 12. Effective communication is the key to a healthy and happy relationship. If you haven't already, learn how your partner deals with stress or anger and learn together how to make it work for you guys. E.g., if I am mad, I need time to myself. My partner knows to let me cool down alone and will come to check on me after a few minutes. If I'm still not okay, I used to say, F off, but now I say, I need some more space, because I know they're just checking in because they care. He, on the other hand, likes attention and comfort when he is mad. I've had to learn to be more affectionate in times of stress because of this. You are your own self. When you've been together a long while, it's easy for all your hobbies, interests, values and beliefs to become exactly the same. That doesn't mean you aren't entitled to do things for yourself or have a differing opinion. Have at least one thing that is your thing to keep yourself sane and interesting. If you can do a little thing to make your spouse's day better, life easier, do it. Bring them coffee. Buy that cheese they like. Remember to set up their favorite shows to record. Grand gestures are great, but little things daily remind each other why you're together. Married 10 years here. Expectations will ruin a marriage. Exponentially so. If there is no communication, assume nothing. Your spouse is not in your brain, cannot read your mind, and cannot interpret passive aggressiveness with the intent that you're trying to deliver. Your spouse is not responsible for your happiness, and you are not responsible for your spouse's happiness. Get a hobby and make sure they have a hobby, separate from your own. Have a hobby together, but also have something for yourself. Keep your relationship private. If you have issues with your spouse, bring it to them. Not Facebook, not Reddit, not your mom. Take it to your spouse. Keep your troubles, dirty laundry, stress, issues between the two of you. Listen to understand, not to solve the problem. You're not Ben and Jerry's. You can't solve all the problems. Just listen. You end up doing more harm than good if you just reassure the other that you're available to them. Money will be your downfall if you don't attack it together. Sit down. Create a budget. Get on the same page. Discuss how you're going to manage finances. Who is paying what bills and when. Your 5-year plan. Your 10-year plan. Goals. Aspirations. Dreams of what you want to do with money and how you're going to get there. This should be a discussion at least once a month to ensure alignment and maintain track of your goal. Do this, and any money troubles you come upon, you will win over together and it won't tear you apart. Put each other first. You're choosing to marry this person, that means you are quite literally choosing them over everyone else in the world. Friends, family, people who have been in your life forever. If you're not prepared to do that for this person, do not marry them. I've seen my fair share of marriages disintegrate because one of the spouses felt threatened by a friend of the spouse, like cheating, or one of the spouse's parents doesn't care for the other spouse. Immoral, illegal, and/or dangerous decisions aside, you should always side with your spouse when it comes to onlookers. Unless it comes to sports teams. And then a little healthy competition makes for fun bedfellows. Dream together. One of the best things in life is being able to look forward to exciting things. If you can dream up something incredible with your spouse, it'll not only give you something to look forward to, but will keep that fire burning and remind you of your promise to one another. Admit when you're wrong. Ask open-ended questions when you're right. Be 100% sure you are marrying the right person for the right reasons. Then, don't forget those reasons. My 19th anniversary is in a couple of weeks, and I can confidently say my husband and I are very happy to be married to each other. It hasn't always been perfect, but we worked through the troubles together. You can have a good time with almost anyone. Don't marry someone unless you know that you can have a bad time with that person. Marry someone who will have your back during disasters and help you clean up. Pick up all the pieces and laugh together. Marry someone who will help you clean up puke, poop, and pee, especially if you plan to have pets and kids, and who will run you a hot shower when you're done. Marry your partner in disaster and you'll end up having a good laugh while you're using the wet vac to clean up an exploded fish tank together. Keep the wedding small. I don't remember half of the people that were there, and it all just added up to a whole lot of unnecessary stress. We didn't even do the first dance or anything because everyone left after the toasts. Don't rush the wedding. Spend some time enjoying being engaged. Ideally, you never will be again. Waiting is a magical thing. It makes you work for what you want, and gives you time to explicitly rationalize and express why you want it. It forces you to live in anticipation of this thing that you want, actively observing what life is like without it. This will give you exponentially greater appreciation for what you have once you've got it. It will keep you from ever taking it for granted, because you'll always have a reminder. Plus, it gives you time when you've still got reasonable distance and accommodation to work through problems that may come to light once you're married. Not much changes once the rings are on, aside from your perspective. So try to take some samples of it. If you don't live together, try it for a few days or a week. If you do, then you've likely already seen some potential points of contention. Address these early, because even those things that seem trivial now will grow with time. It could be forgetting to take the garbage out, or leaving wet towels on the floor, or the satanistic rituals in the basement. You'll save yourself a lot of trouble by getting things into open air early, especially now, when you have every opportunity to take space and time apart if things get too heated or it takes a long time to reach a compromise. Also, compromise. possibly the single biggest and most important word in marriage. A willingness to compromise demonstrates that you love and respect someone enough to sacrifice something in order to reach a middle ground. Take the time to reach mutually acceptable compromises. They may not come quickly or easily, they may not be comfortable, and they may take some creativity. But very few problems are truly big enough that a compromise cannot be reached.